Hey there, Goblin Horde. I am the Goblin King, and I'm bringing all you wee goblins out there another gripping anime review. Well, maybe not gripping, because I'm not sure exactly how to be entertaining from behind this avatar, but, hopefully, I'm at least semi-informative. For real though, I feel like I should look into that VTuber thing, because at least then, I could be a bit more animated, right? I do actually gesture a lot when I talk, and then I could probably do something like that screen capture thing that the rest of the more entertaining sector of YouTube seems to do. I just draw more animations, but my stylus broke and the replacement I got from eBay wasn't up to snuff. You definitely get what you pay for. Anyway, right off the bat, I'm going to say that this anime that I'm about to introduce was fucking funny. When I initially went over the premise for the thing, it sounded ridiculous enough that I figured it'd be pretty good, but it totally blew my expectations right out of the water. This thing was pretty much a laugh track all the way through. So, by this point, you might be asking yourself, well, what anime are you talking about, you dumb bastard? Well, I'm about to tell you, so settle your ass down. Now that's out of the way, the anime I'm reviewing tonight actually has a longer English title than the Japanese one, for once. In fact, I'd go so far to say that the English title actually added shit that wasn't in the Japanese one. So, the shortened Japanese title is Fabiniku, while the English title is Life with an Ordinary Guy Who Reincarnated into a Total Fantasy Knockout. The Japanese title actually calls him an old guy, which irks me a little bit since I'm older than the two main characters myself. That being said though, if you don't get why I thought this thing would be funny as hell just from that title alone, you may have misplaced your sense of finding the humor in the absurdly ridiculous. So what's this anime about? Well, the anime follows two childhood friends who are now in their early 30s, Tachibana Hinata and Jinguji Tsukasa. One night, while heading home after striking out at a mixer, Tachibana and Jinguji are basically accosted by another world's goddess of love and beauty. She chooses Tachibana as her hero and reincarnates him in her world as an, apparently, incredibly beautiful moe girl, and Jinguji seems to be brought along for the ride. When they balk at the charge of killing the obligatory demon lord and his army, and subsequently insult the goddess gets pissed off and curses them, telling them that the only way to break the curse is for them to destroy the demon lord before disappearing. Since she's a goddess of love, the curse seems to be causing the two friends to fall in love with each other. This is something neither of them wants, so they decide to take up the goddess's charge before that unthinkable fate can befall them. So Tachibana, like his friend, is a 32-year-old office worker. He's the complete opposite of his best friend Jinguji. He's pretty average in basically every single way. He's also very sociable, friendly, and outgoing. He's easily able to make friends and put people at their ease. He's very laid back and is very open about his romantic interests and his interest in the opposite sex. He's actually the one who dragged Jinguji to the fateful mixer in the hopes of getting his more staid friend married off so that he could find a girl. That's actually one of his character flaws, actually, being jealous of his friend's good looks and popularity with the ladies. It was, in fact, his drunken, rather spiteful wish that he'd rather be a pretty girl living life on easy mode, because they do, than having to compete with his friend that put him in his predicament in the other world. Apparently the goddess heard that wish and granted it for him. She, in fact, took his words quite literally and gave him a body that was supposed to be the most attractive in the world. So much so that most every man who lays eyes on Tachibana from that point forward is immediately charmed by her and falls madly in love with her. Emphasis on the madly part. This, of course, leads to all kinds of wonderfully humorous situations within the anime. Jinguji is also a 32-year-old office worker. He's the polar opposite of his best friend Tachibana. He's supposed to be incredibly good-looking, very athletic, and very popular with the ladies, though he shows zero interest in them. He's very intelligent and has a knack for picking up pretty much any skill that he tries. He's also very staid, formal, and repressed. He is also a stand-up guy who will always try to do the right thing even if it's to his own detriment. The only relationship he has any real interest in is his friendship with his friend Tachibana, and actually fears Tachibana finding a girl since he thinks she'll take his friend away from him. That's actually straight up stated in the first episode, so that's not a spoiler. At first, it appears that Jinguji is spirited away to the other world with Tachibana by accident, but his true purpose in the story is revealed a few episodes in. However, since that would be a spoiler, I won't tell you what it is. It's actually pretty obvious once a few of the contextual clues are laid down. One thing I do want to say, and I briefly mentioned it earlier, is that 32 is not that old, damn it. As someone who's about to actually be old, 40 is legit right around the corner for me. I can say, with authority, that 32 is still pretty freaking young. Damn it. There's a couple other more prominent side characters that I suppose I could talk about, but I won't go into too many details. It's much more fun to actually watch the episodes, I think. There's Schwartz. Schwartz is another hero recruited by the goddess of night that the two main characters meet a few episodes in. He's a high schooler and also from Japan, so Schwartz obviously isn't his real name. It's also a lot longer than that, but it was utterly ridiculous, so I'm not going to actually try to say the whole thing. It's a name he chose himself because apparently he hates his real name and flat out refuses to disclose what it is. Schwartz is young, naive, and very much out of his depth, especially when he's first introduced, though he savors the idea of being a hero and really leans into that new aspect of his character. He's also got that whole edgy teen thing going on, which is probably why the goddess of night recruited him. He's definitely put me in mind of a chuny, for real. There's Lou, who also has a much longer name that I'm not going to try to pronounce since it has a lot of L's, is one of the first antagonists that the duo face after coming to the other world. She's an elven princess who is quite beautiful and very much full of herself because of it. It seems that she may have been one of, if not the, most beautiful girl in the world before Tachibana made his gender-bending appearance. She, of course, takes an instant disliking to Tachibana, and quite plainly sets about plotting his death from that point onward. There are a few other reasons too, but that's pretty much the main one right there. The only other really prominent character is Shin. He's a very shady individual whom the duo encounter during an adventure in a village that worships a squid. Jinguji winds up recruiting him to help deal with an issue involving Tachibana. He winds up accompanying the duo in their quest to search for answers to the question of the Demon Lord. He's quite taken with Jinguji and seems to be completely immune to the charming effects of Tachibana's newfound beauty, for some odd reason. So, I stated right out of the gate that this anime was funny as hell. It really was. I don't think I really stopped laughing, or at least grinning, throughout this anime's 12-episode run. It's very funny, and it's very silly. The interactions between Tachibana and Jinguji are seriously the best. Jinguji, probably a little obviously at this point, tends to play the straight man to Tachibana's more goofy and eccentric ways. That was definitely the showcase and the highlight of this show. If there was anything I wasn't a fan of, it was that the show kind of mostly felt like filler. For most of the 12 episodes, the story just kind of plodded along at a snail's pace. Not much was actually done with the overall narrative of the tale. Everything seemed to be revolving mostly around side quests and hijinks with the show. Now, don't get me wrong, I love me some good hijinks and shenanigans, as long as the overall story doesn't get bogged down in them, and boy did this one get bogged down big time. For real, they made no real progress until the very last episode. Then, the slight progress they did make came from a character that they'd met several episodes before as an almost offhand thing. Oh, you guys didn't know about that? That shit was a little disappointing. Though the main characters made the show very fun to watch, and I'd for sure recommend this one if you want a good laugh. This one never takes itself or even its own narrative seriously at all. Which is a bit sad, because even though the big bad is pretty much the stock and trade for an Isekai or general fantasy anime like this, the characters and premise are different enough that it could be fun and interesting to see the rest of this story unfold. If you're more indifferent to comedy anime and want a good story, I'd probably skip this one until it's got, hopefully, a couple more seasons under its belt. Anyway, I do think that's all I've got for you all on this one, Goblins. Did you watch this anime? Were you thinking of watching it? Let me know what you thought in that handy section down below. While you're down there, fuck, I've got nothing for this one. If, for some reason, you like what I do and you want to join the Viridian Horde, you can do so by crushing those like and subscribe buttons. Like a goblin. I'll see you all tomorrow for another pop culture variety hour and Friday Night Tights. Thank you for watching this long. I'll see you then. Lates.